It's 11:14 on a Sunday night. You're lying in bed doing the math again. Not because anything went wrong. Nothing went wrong. You're just lying there in the dark running the same numbers you ran last Sunday. Mortgage, car payment, student loan, groceries, trying to figure out if this is the month you finally get ahead, or if you're just going to tread water again like you have been for 3 years. You know the answer. You've known the answer for a while, but you keep running the math anyway because the alternative is accepting that this is just what life feels like now. Meanwhile, your neighbor, same street, bought around the same time, similar house, not some wildly different income, woke up last Tuesday and decided to take the week off. No crisis, no email to his manager. He just didn't feel like going in, so he didn't. He's not richer than you. He's just not doing that math anymore. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what separates those two lives, and it has almost nothing to do with income and almost everything to do with one number that most people are still paying off when they're 66 years old. By the end of this, that Sunday night math problem is going to look very different. But here's what most mortgage content gets completely wrong, and it's going to change how you think about this the moment I say it. Hey, I'm Alice from Money Blueprint. Let's get into this properly. Most people think paying off a mortgage means losing a bill. That's not what happens. What actually disappears is something most people stop noticing they were living with, a low-grade, ever-present financial constraint that shapes every major decision in their adult life. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, constantly in the background. But before we get to what changes when it's gone, we need to sit with how brutal the math actually is while you're in it, because most people have never seen their own numbers clearly. The average monthly mortgage payment in 2025 hit $2,329, and that's just principal and interest, nothing else. For anyone who bought or refinanced at current rates, $2,845 is closer to reality. The median American household takes home around $5,400 a month after taxes, which means a standard mortgage payment is consuming 43% of disposable income before a single grocery has been bought or a single car payment made. 43%. Every financial professional on earth agrees the threshold should be 28%, so most American homeowners are walking around 15 percentage points over the limit every single month for 30 years. Let me show you what that actually looks like in a real household. Meet the Garcias. Dual income, combined $110,000 a year, which sounds solid until you run it through what life actually costs. After federal taxes, state taxes, FICA, and a modest 401k contribution, they take home around $6,800 a month after taxes. Now watch it disappear. Mortgage on their $380,000 house, $2,400. Property taxes, $380. Homeowners insurance, $200. Maintenance reserve, because the HVAC doesn't care that it's December, $320. That's $3,300 a month just to legally occupy the building. They have $3,500 left. 2 car payments, $800. Car insurance, $240. Gas, $280. Student loans, $550. Health insurance premiums, their employer only partially covers, $380. Groceries for 2 adults trying to eat like adults, $700. Utilities, internet, phones, $420. They're at $130 remaining, and they haven't touched clothing, kids' activities, the $80 copay from last month's urgent care, the dog who just started limping, any savings beyond the modest 401k, any concept of fun. The Garcias are not irresponsible. They don't have a boat, they've never been to Europe, they are 2 professional adults who did everything they were supposed to do, and every financial decision they make, every career conversation, every request for flexibility, every time one of them thinks about going back to school or starting something on the side, gets filtered through one silent background question: can we still cover the mortgage? That question is a tab they cannot close. It runs in the background of every major choice for as long as the mortgage exists. But here's the layer that almost nobody talks about, and this is where it gets genuinely interesting. The psychological research on debt isn't just about stress levels. A 2019 study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences tracked what happened to people when their debts were eliminated, not reduced, eliminated. Anxiety dropped from 78% of participants showing clinical symptoms to 53%, a 25-point reduction in diagnosable anxiety just from closing debt accounts. But here's the finding that actually stopped me. The number of debt accounts closed mattered more than the dollar amount of relief. Closing a $3,000 credit card produced more psychological improvement than getting a $5,000 debt partially reduced. The brain doesn't care about the dollar amount. It cares about the open tab. And for most people who have fought their way through credit cards and car loans and student debt, the mortgage is the last open tab, the last thing humming in the background. When it closes, the refrigerator you'd stopped hearing finally goes quiet. But there's something even more concrete that changes, and this is the part mortgage content almost never gets into. In FIRE math, the framework that says you need 25 times your annual expenses to be financially independent, eliminating a $2,000 monthly mortgage payment doesn't just free up $2,000 a month. It reduces your financial independence number by $600,000. You haven't earned more, you haven't gotten a promotion, you haven't launched a business. You've just changed what survival costs, and that number, what survival costs, determines everything. When your monthly baseline requires both incomes running at full capacity, neither person can afford to leave a job they hate, take a pay cut for work that matters, start something that needs 18 months to get profitable, or ask for a schedule that doesn't wreck their health. The mortgage is a 30-year employment contract you signed without realizing it. Now, let's be precise about what actually frees up, because people consistently get this wrong in both directions. When the mortgage payment disappears, you don't suddenly have the full amount to invest. Property taxes, insurance, and maintenance still exist. On a $400,000 home, you're looking at roughly $838 a month in ongoing costs, even with no mortgage. So if your payment was $2,845, you've freed up around $2,000 a month in real deployable money, not $2,845, about $2,000. Which is still, and I want to be precise here, absolutely extraordinary in terms of what it does over time. Take that $2,000 and invest it into a basic S&P 500 index fund, earning the historical average of around 8% annually. 5 years, $146,000. 10 years, $365,000. 15 years, $693,000. 20 years, $1,177,000. You contributed $480,000 of your own money. The market contributed $697,000 on top of that, more than you put in yourself. The majority of your wealth came from compound interest, not from working harder. This is the part the bank's office doesn't mention when you're signing the 30-year paperwork. They're not going to tell you their product is keeping you from $1.1 million, funnily enough. But before you think this is settled, there's a counter-argument worth addressing honestly, and it's one the comments section is already writing. If your mortgage rate is below 5%, the math says you're better off investing the extra money than prepaying principal. Wharton professor Michael Roberts ran the numbers on a $500,000 mortgage at 3% and found that investing excess payments outperformed early payoff in roughly 95% of historical 30-year windows. The logic is clean. A guaranteed 3% return from killing debt loses to a historical 8% return from equities. About 82% of existing mortgage holders have rates below 5% right now. So if that's you, the spreadsheet says invest the difference. Here's what the spreadsheet doesn't know, and this is the part that changes the answer for most people. It assumes you actually invest the difference. Most people don't. The mortgage payment was forced savings. When it disappears and gets replaced by discretionary cash, a significant percentage of households absorb it into lifestyle within 18 months and have nothing to show for it. The spreadsheet also assumes you have the psychological fortitude to watch your portfolio drop 40% during a crash while still owing $2,500 in mandatory mortgage payments. One scenario is uncomfortable, the other is the reason people make catastrophic financial decisions under duress. At rates over 7%, which is most people who bought since 2022, aggressive payoff is a genuine guaranteed return. Between 4.5 and 7%, it's a genuine judgment call. Below 4.5%, invest the difference, but only if you'll actually invest it and not let it quietly become better takeout habits. The real answer isn't a rate, it's knowing yourself.
Now, let's talk about the demographics, because the numbers here tell a story worth sitting with, and it's not an encouraging one. About 40% of U.S. owner-occupied homes are now mortgage-free. Sounds encouraging. Then you look at who those people are. 63% of homeowners 65 and older are mortgage-free, versus fewer than 28% of working-age homeowners. The average age of payoff is 58 to 63. The median first-time homebuyer age just hit 36. A 30-year mortgage from age 36 doesn't end until 66, 3 years into what used to be called retirement. And here's the number that genuinely unsettles me. In 1989, 3% of homeowners over 80 still had a mortgage. Today, nearly a third do. The share of 65 to 79-year-olds still carrying mortgages has gone from 24% to 41% in 30 years. Median mortgage debt among seniors is up 400%. We are dragging housing debt into retirement at a scale that has never happened before in American history, quietly, as though it's normal. It isn't fine. Only 23% of all Americans are completely debt-free. No mortgage, no car payment, nothing. Which means what we're talking about today is genuinely rare. Rare enough that when people cross that finish line, they consistently report something they couldn't have predicted. Not just relief, a kind of silence they didn't know was missing. So how do you accelerate getting there? Because the math on arriving 5 or 8 years early is more compelling than most people ever run. On a $450,000 mortgage at 6.5%, your standard payment is $2,844 a month. Total interest over 30 years, $573,840. Read that again. You pay more in interest than the house initially cost. The bank collects from you more in interest alone than the entire value of the home you bought. It's a beautiful business model if you're the bank. But here's where small changes have outsized impact, and most people never run these numbers. Bi-weekly payments, splitting your monthly payment in half and paying every 2 weeks, results in 13 full payments per year instead of 12. That one change, which costs you nothing in lifestyle, cuts 5 to 6 years off the loan and eliminates over $119,000 in interest. One extra payment per year, $119,000 gone. An extra $500 a month toward principal shortens the timeline by about 8 years and eliminates $150,000 in interest. None of these are heroic sacrifices. They're the difference between paying off your house at 55 versus 63, and the life you get to live at 55 with no mortgage versus the one you're living at 63 waiting for it to end. Now, what do you actually do the day the last payment processes? First, and I cannot stress this enough, verify your lender filed the lien release and you received your deed. This is the most boring sentence in the video and also the most important one. Lenders occasionally just don't file it, and you find out 3 years later when you try to sell and discover you don't legally own what you've been paying for. Tedious, essential. Do it. Second, before you redirect a single dollar, rebuild your emergency fund. You've been house poor. Your reserves are almost certainly thinner than they should be. Get 6 to 12 months of your new lower expenses in liquid savings before doing anything ambitious. Then deploy the freed up money in order. Max the 401k match first, that's a 50 to 100% guaranteed return, and nothing else on this list comes close.
Max the Roth IRA, $7,000 in 2026, growing completely tax-free, the IRS never touching the gains. Max the 401k contribution limit, $23,500, fund an HSA if you're eligible, then everything remaining into a taxable brokerage account with low-cost index funds. If you're redirecting $2,000 a month through all of these at 8%, you're at $365,000 in a decade and $1.17 million in 20 years. Not because you did anything clever, because you survived the mortgage, closed the last tab, and finally gave compound interest the room it needed to do what it was always going to do, if you'd just gotten the bank out of the way. Here's what I actually want you to take from this. The mortgage wasn't just a large bill, it was a permission slip you had to silently ask for every time you wanted to do something different with your life. Want to leave a job that's damaging your health? Better check if you can still cover the mortgage. Want to start something risky? Make sure the mortgage is safe first. Want to take a pay cut to do work that actually matters? You can't. The mortgage. For most people, for most of their adult lives, the mortgage is the invisible hand shaping nearly every major decision they make. Not the only hand, but the one with the tightest grip. When it's gone, the grip releases. That's what the Garcias discover at year 22. Not that they're suddenly wealthy, though the compounding takes care of that in time, but that they can finally make decisions based on what they actually want, rather than what the payment requires. That's the change nobody talks about. That's the one that matters most. The Sunday night math you've been running in the dark, you're not going to run it forever. But the people who get to stop running it the earliest aren't the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who understood what the finish line was actually worth and ran toward it on purpose. If this video gave you a clearer picture of where you're headed or where you want to be headed, I'd love for you to subscribe to Money Blueprint. This channel exists for people who are done settling for vague financial anxiety and want to understand exactly what's happening and what to do about it. And drop a comment. Where are you in your mortgage journey right now? Just starting out? 10 years in? Already done? I read every single one, and the stories in the comments are often the best part of making these videos. I'll see you in the next one.